Hello everyone, in this video we're going to be creating a geometric class hierarchy. Now the idea here is that we're going to be writing a program that lets the user draw shapes. So we're going to supply them with several different geometric objects. However, we're going to make things easier for ourselves as programmers. We're going to make it so that all of our classes have a specific superclass or parent. So we're going to have this class called geometric object, which contains all of the methods and properties that are common to all of the shapes. And then we're going to create subclasses that extend from geometric object to do something in particular. Now the classes we're going to write are going to be a circle and a rectangle, and these are all going to extend from geometric object. Circle will include things that we need to know about for a circle, such as the radius, and a rectangle needs to know things like the width and length of the shape. But the common things go into the superclass, and this allows us to reuse code over and over again, as opposed to having to rewrite specialized versions for every single class that we write. So, this is the class hierarchy here. We can see that we have a geometric object class, and that includes things like the color of the shape, whether it's filled or not, and then a creation time, which is going to be a date object. It then has getters and setters for the color, whether it's filled, and a getter for get date created, and finally it has a toString method, which returns some information about the shape. Now these red arrows here are kind of special. They mean that circle extends from geometric object. So this means that geometric object is the superclass and circle is a subclass of that. The other way of thinking about this relationship is an. So for example, circle is a geometric object, rectangle is a geometric object. So that's how you should think when you're looking at this kind of relationship. Now, as I said before, circle has to include things like the radius, because that's what we need to know to be able to draw a circle. We have getters and setters for the radius, and then we also have a parameter, methods for getting the area, getting the perimeter, and getting the diameter. Rectangle needs to know things like the width and height of the lines, and then we also have a method for getting the area and getting the perimeter, and all these getters as well. So let's get started. Over in Eclipse, I've created a new project called Geometric Classes, and we're going to add a class to this right now, and I'm going to call this Geometric Object 1. Okay, maximize this. So, first thing we should do is get those variables written up. So the first one was a variable for color. So private, this is going to be a string, color equals, and we're going to assign this a default value of white. So unless otherwise specified, it's going to be white. Alright, so private Boolean field, so whether it's filled, and finally a date. java.util.date date created. Okay, so they're the variables that belong to geometric object, and these are going to be common to all of the shapes that we write. All of the shapes are going to have a color and whether it's filled or not. So, default constructor next. All we're going to do here is create a date object. So date created equals new java.util.date. Now remember that the default constructor for date initializes to the current time. So next we're going to have another constructor which takes in parameters for color, Boolean field, date created equals new java.util.date, initializing the date object. This.color equals our parameters color. This.field equals the parameter field. So that's our default constructor. Now the next thing we're going to have is getters and setters for the color and whether it's filled, and a getter only for date created. Now I'm going to speed things up a bit by getting Eclipse to generate these for us. So generate getters and setters. We're going to have a get color and a set color. We're going to have get date created and set date created. Oops, sorry, we're only going to have get date created. We don't want them to be able to, the user to be able to change the date that the shape was created. We want that to stay the same. But we'll have both getters and setters for field. Now if I press OK now, there are all our methods created by Eclipse for us. So we've got one for getting the color, one for setting the color, one for setting whether it's filled, and one for getting that variable, and finally one for get date created. Now the only other thing we're going to code for geometric object is going to be the toString method. So public string toString return created on plus date created plus new line character color and field. So just returning a bit of information about the shape. Now date created here, what that'll do is implicitly call date's toString method. So that'll work fine. Same as for field and color. So that's geometric object done. Why don't we now look at rectangle? So a new class called rectangle1. Alright, now when we're writing a rectangle class, we need to know the width and height, and these are going to be doubles. So private double width, private double height. So public rectangle, this is just going to be a default constructor, and we're not actually going to do anything in here at all. So public rectangle1 double width double height, this dot width equals our parameters width, this dot height equals our parameter height. Now, so there are two constructors. I'm just going to stop there because something I should have mentioned a bit before. If we go back to our slide here that shows our class hierarchy, we've said the rectangle is a subclass of geometric object. Now, in Java, we actually have to specify this, otherwise that doesn't happen. The way we do it in Java is in our class definition up here, public class rectangle extends from whatever superclass we hunt, so it's going to be geometric object. So what this is saying is that geometric object is a superclass for rectangle1. Now, this is really important. If we don't do that, then rectangle doesn't inherit any of these variables or methods. But if we do it like this with the extends, that's the case. Now, rectangle1 is a child of geometric object 1, a subclass of geometric object 1. So we need another constructor now, which is going to take even more parameters. So public rectangle1 double width double height string color boolean field. Now this dot width equals width, this dot height equals height. Now what we can do here is actually call methods that are in geometric object 1, because we've said that rectangle extends from that class. So we can call the setColor method, and that'll work fine, and we can also call setField. So even though we haven't actually written a method called setColor inside rectangle1, it inherits it from the superclass. So this is going to call geometric objects method setColor and setField. Now the next thing we're going to have is getters and setters for the width and height. So again, I'll get Eclipse to generate these for me. Getters and setters, get height and get width, and set height and set width. So I've got all of those checked. And there they are. Fantastic. Now the next thing we're going to have for rectangle is a method to get the area and a method to get the perimeter. So public double get area. Now remember, the area for a rectangle is width times height. public double get perimeter, return. Now this is going to be 2 multiplied by the width plus the height. And there's our rectangle class done. Fantastic. We're going to create another class now. I know this video is going to be slightly over time, but that's okay. I can't type any faster than this. So this is going to be called Circle4. And again, this is going to extend from geometric object. So extends geometric object 1. So a circle needs a radius, private double radius, default constructor, public circle 4 double radius. Now what we're going to do here is call our parent classes, our superclasses default constructor. And the way we do that in Java, if we want to call the constructor of the superclass to initialize variables for us, we use the keyword super. And that's what will happen. Our superclass's constructor will be called. So now all we need to do is set the radius. So by the time we get to here, we've called the superclass's constructor that takes no parameters, which was this one here. So our date object has been created. And then we have radius set. Alright. So next we're going to have another constructor. Now we can do the same thing with constructors that take parameters. So in this case we're going to go super color field, which will cause geometric objects class that takes a string and a boolean to be called. So this one here will be called first. Now I should point out that if we're going to do this, super has to be the first thing that appears inside our constructor. We can't have these two lines swapped around the other way, it won't work. But now we can also set the radius. This dot radius equals radius. So now we've initialized the color, whether it's filled, the date object, and radius using our superclasses constructor. Alright, so next we're going to have getters and setters for the radius. Check. There they are. Now, we're going to have a method to get the area. So public double get area, return. Now remember that how we get the area is radius multiplied by radius multiplied by pi. And we'll get the diameter, which is just double the radius. Public double get perimeter, return 2 multiplied by radius multiplied by math.pi. Alright, now we're going to have one more method here, which is going to print the circle, and then we're also going to customize the toString method. So public void print circle, system.out.println toString. So we're calling the toString method plus the circle is created Maybe I should put this down onto another line. That's a bit easier to see. Alright, so we're printing out some information about the circle. We're calling the toString method in here. The circle is created on blah, and the radius is blah. Alright, so finally we're going to create a new toString method. So public string toString return circle what class. Okay, so this is our circle class done. Finally, we're going to have one more class that is just going to be for testing. So we're going to call this test circle rectangle. Alright, now just to speed things along, here's one that I prepared earlier. So inside our class we have a main method, and what this is going to do is create a new circle object with a radius of 1. So we're calling this constructor here, and we're printing out some information about it. And then we're creating a rectangle which takes a width and a height of 2 and 4 and printing out some information about that. So let's run this and see what happens. Alright, here's our output. Circle www blah blah. So because we're calling the circles toString method, which was this one, circle blah blah blah, white. It's white, created on Tuesday. I forgot a space in here, but that's when it was created. Color is white and field is false. Okay, the radius is 1, the area is pi, and the diameter is 2. And then our rectangle, we're calling the toString method here. Now notice that in rectangle we didn't actually write a toString method, which means it uses geometric objects version of it. Whereas circle we wrote our own, so it uses that one instead. So if we need to in our superclass, we can specialize a method or override a method, but we don't necessarily have to. And then finally we printed out the area and the perimeter. So that's pretty much it for this video. So just to summarize real quick, in this video we created a class hierarchy for geometric objects. All the classes that we created extended from a superclass, which was geometric object. And the idea here is that superclass is supposed to contain code that is common to all of the subclasses. And then we specialized this, so we created a rectangle class that needed a width and a height, and methods to calculate the area and the perimeter. And then a circle class that had to have the radius. And then we also had methods for calculating the area, diameter, and perimeter. Now we had to write these in each of the classes. We couldn't put that into the superclass because the techniques for calculating the area of a circle are different for calculating the rectangle. But the common code could go into the superclass, and that's what this video is all about. So that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.